of 2 billion people, and we're driven by values to which we hold ourselves accountable. 2020 was a busy year, co-creating 3 reports with partners and producing one of our own, inviting high-level guests to participate in the Catalyzing Change campaign, hosting fireside chats and expert hours, which will be continuing in 2021. To celebrate our achievements, together we placed our supporters in the limelight with the first Catalyst 2030 Awards for Systemic Change. With the blessing of the Dalai Lama, we celebrated finalists and winners in the following categories: special recognition for our early supporters, individual philanthropists, donor organizations, philanthropic intermediaries, corporate organizations, bi- and multilateral organizations, and 4 regional winners in the category of national governments. And now on to Catalyzing Change Week 2021. During this social entrepreneur-led event, we bring together diverse stakeholders in over 100 sessions to showcase their systems change efforts and the best practices that can accelerate our work in pursuit of the SDGs.
Thank you, Yasmin. So welcome everybody to today's session, which is on how do we build a shared vocabulary and language around school quality to bring about change. So before I start introducing the session, I wanted everybody to take a minute and in the chat drop 3 things. One, where are you dialing in from? What is the name of your organization, as well as who are the key stakeholders that you work with? So my name is Anushree and I head Adhyayan Foundation. And like I said, today we're talking about why is it important for us to share a common vocabulary and language around school quality to bring about improvement at scale. So this is something this idea is something that's backed by research. So about, say, a few years ago, the Education Development Trust released this report that looked at cities across the world that were really successful at bringing about systemic reform in education. And they had cities like New York, London, Ho Chi Minh, Rio, Dubai. And one of the common threads that tied all these cities together was that idea that each of these cities had a very clear sense of what the vision for their reform would be. And every stakeholder shared that common understanding of what that meant. So today we actually have with us 4 really interesting speakers who will be sharing their perspectives from different viewpoints and what they have attempted in their own context in terms of trying to develop a common language around school quality amongst their stakeholders. Since today is a storytelling session, I thought that I could start with a little story of my own and then sort of hand it over to our speakers today. So about 10 years ago, when I was teaching in a very low-resourced government-aided school in India, and at that point in time, we had the Right to Education Act that had just been passed. And one of the components of that act was something called continuous and comprehensive evaluation. Many of you attending today are from India, a few of you are from outside. Just to give context to those who are from outside, this meant that children, the act was asking us to ensure that children could demonstrate their learning in different ways beyond just paper pen tests. And I was in a school which was very low resource, which was very traditional, wherein paper pen test was the norm, where children would mug up something and come and regurgitate it in a paper pen test. So when this was passed, our principal had us all sit down and say, okay, what does this mean? We're supposed to get children to demonstrate their learning in different ways. How do we do this? And she said, you know what, we could do oral tests, we could do project-based learning. And we said, okay. And when she articulated what she thought that meant, she said, oral tests is, instead of getting them to mug up their content and write it down, let them mug it up and let them say it instead of writing it. And she said, project-based learning means let's get them to make charts. We'll tell them what to put on the chart and we'll put it up and that'll be the project-based learning. And this is a really classic example of, a country having this big vision for what a good quality education can look like, but how that gets lost in translation as it goes down the line and different stakeholders start interpreting it in their own way. So today we sort of wanted to take a minute to kind of step back and say, if we are talking about systems change in education, the first step is developing that common and shared understanding and saying, what do we even mean when we say a good school, right? And today more than ever, because we find ourselves in a very overwhelming moment globally with the pandemic. In India, we are going through a very disconcerting second wave that has felt relentless. It has been 14 months of schools and colleges being highly disrupted, and a general sense amongst teachers, schools, governments, NGOs working in the space of like loss, of grief, of confusion. And so now more than ever, we really need to go back to the drawing board and say, what is that common vocabulary? What is that common language around what is our vision for schools? So like I said, today we have 4 speakers with us who will be sharing their own stories from the field, from their perspectives. We have a parent, we have an NGO practitioner, we have a government school principal and a government official. I also want to point out that today, while they will be sharing 4 strategies with us, which are mostly pre-COVID, their examples and their stories might be pre-COVID, but the larger insights that they're sharing can very well be translated to our current context. To make the most of our time today, we're going to try to keep the session as interactive as possible. We will have a series of polls, as well as we will keep the chat really active, and there'll be questions for you. We'll request you to please share stories from your own context, links to research papers that you've liked, anything that you found interesting in response to what the speakers are sharing. The format for today will be that we will have our first 2 speakers speak, and then we will open it up for Q&A for about 10 minutes. Then we will have our the third and fourth speaker speak, and then open it up for Q&A and a quick closing activity. So with that, I am going to hand it over to my colleague Sneha, who is going to introduce our first speaker for the day. Jayati, I'm going to request you to please share your screen.
Thanks, Anushree. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to introduce the first speaker for today. Our first speaker is Bishubha, who is representing the parent stakeholder group. She is a social entrepreneur and a neurolinguistic programming practitioner. She has founded Hanker Education and has about 13 years of multinational human resource management experience. Through this pandemic, we have seen that parents have become a very important part and very aware of what students are being taught and how they are being taught. And we believe that it's really important for parents to understand what a school's vision is and what their role is in contributing to improvement. Bishubha today will be sharing the first strategy, which is to include diverse stakeholders in reviewing the school together, especially parents. Bishubha has been very engaged in an active parent assessor in schools, and she has a lot of deep insights to share with us. Just before we hand it over to Bishubha, we'll have our first poll for today. Yasmin, can you please pull up the poll? So everyone must have the poll on the screen right now. It says, when you were growing up, did you understand what your school's vision was and what your role in achieving it was? We'll have a few more seconds before the poll closes. Sure. So 89% of us did not understand what our school's vision was and how we were involved and what was our role in achieving the same. Thank you everyone for answering this, and now handing it over to Bishubha. Bishubha, over to you.
Thank you, Anushree. Thank you, Neha, for the wonderful introduction. And it is my honor to be a part of Decatalyzing Change Week 2021 and to share panel with such diverse personalities from different parts of our country, and me being connected from Assam right now. A very good afternoon, everyone. I would like to draw your attention towards my journey as a, you call it as a catalyst or as a parent reviewer. It all started around the year 2019 with an unexpected call, and that too at an odd hour from the class teacher of my 10-year-old. And she mentioned that my name was proposed for a 360-degree review meet, which is to be conducted within the school premise. And this would have a composite participation from the school senior management, an external review agency, the school leaders, student volunteers, and few parental representatives. So prior to this review meet, let me tell you that my relationship with this school was very formal, and my involvement was extremely limited. However, I was like any other parent. I was very diligent in attending parent-teacher meetings, annual events, sports, or any other programs as such. So I was excited and curious to be a part of this new initiative. But at the same time, I was in a dilemma because I had to commit 3 full working days, which was a little difficult from my busy schedule. But the class teacher, insisted, and I could not say no. So the first day of the review was really an eye-opening session, and as we were exposed to discussions centered around reflecting, as Anushri told, how do we define good school? What good looks like? What are the mechanisms that school must adopt to ensure quality, education? How does active participation of all the stakeholders can bring reform to the existing system? So I must admit that these were certain thoughts that never struck to my mind, nor I ever tried to dive into. So sooner we were oriented about a comprehensive self-review tool, which was very well defined. I would call it a very, very broad framework, which assesses a school based on 6 key performance areas. And it was to be done with the best intention of identifying what are the better practices, methods, or systems that school has, and which are the areas it needs improvement. So it was to be done with in-depth observation, open interaction, and evidence collection from both primary and secondary resources, and followed by feedback sharing with the participants and with the entire staff. So this whole exercise was indeed a great experiential learning, I would say, rather as empowering one. I made my mind during this process not to limit my learning in this capacity, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity given to me to continue this journey as a reviewer, and I reviewed more schools thereon. As I mentioned, this the collaborative review approach offered me a very different perspective to look at learning or school or education beyond the framework of syllabus or scholastic goals. It has really broadened my horizon to understand, observe, and reflect different classroom environment. Not only the physical part of it, but also the quality of the knowledge transferring processes, different management styles, approaches towards pedagogy, the assembly behavior as such, child rights and safety standards in place, feedback sharing mechanism within the class or outside or with the different groups, the leadership, engagement, and inclusion of children and parental communities into the school's decision-making processes and implementation strategies as well. All these elements, actually builds a school's culture, and these must translate into helping a child to be more confident in life, enhance their decision-making abilities, and also to become a holistic human being. Right. So as parents, we all share common goal and the shared vocabulary with school when it comes to quality education and better future, isn't it? So to achieve this, participation and inclusion of parental community becomes extremely important. So parental participation strengthens school programs, and it helps in effective implementation. And I have seen it myself. It improves quality and vigilance, advocates transparency in the process, and also better utilization of school resources. Above all, I feel better expectation management. All this boosts the existing system that school has and allows the space for improvement. So I would like to conclude by highlighting the point that in this journey of learning, transformation, growth, and development are constant. Parent being important, stakeholder, must transcend themselves from merely being involved parent to an engaged parents, as involvement implies doing to, and engagement implies doing with, which can actually bring reform in the education ecosystem by creating a collaborative environment conducive for transformational learning, sustainability, and holistic growth. Thank you and stay safe.
So thank you so
Thank you, Vishubha.
much. So I think, thank you so much, Vishubha, for sharing the first strategy, which is that when, if you want to build a common language and understanding of school quality, including all stakeholders is really important, and parents being one very important stakeholder who shouldn't just be informed, but actively engaged in understanding what the school's trying to do in their role. We will now move on to our second speaker, who we have with us, who's Priya Agarwal. Jayati, I'm requesting you to just share your screen. So Priya is currently the founder director of Antarang Foundation. Antarang is an organization that bridges the gap between education and employment for young adults from really vulnerable communities in India. So far, they have impacted about 1 lakh lives. Prior to Antarang, Priya has headed organizations like Sneha, Akanksha Foundation, has spent a long time in advertising. She has several fellowships to her name, right from the Dasra Social Impact Leadership Program Fellow to the Aspire Fellowship to Unlimited India Growth Challenge Fellowship. So Priya is somebody who's really accomplished and somebody who really, really cares about the space of employability and young adults and adolescents. What we had invited her here to speak about is the second strategy around how do you build that shared vocabulary and understanding around with your stakeholders, is that create an awareness in the larger ecosystem around the shared language, because employability is often not seen as something that schools really touch, or colleges may start talking about it, but in very narrow terms. So Priya has really tried to expand what that definition means and expand the stakeholder set that really should care about it. So before we go into having Priya share her story, can we launch the second poll, Yasmin? So the second poll is how important do you think it is for the larger ecosystem around schools and colleges to buy into a common and shared vision of quality? So we have about 37 people who voted, with 97% saying it's really important and 3% saying that it is somewhat important. Yasmin, maybe we can end the polling. Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'm going to hand it over to Priya now to share her story around building awareness in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Anushri, for that warm introduction, and really happy to be here as a fellow Ashoka fellow to and take part in this extremely interesting discussion. So, as the poll also said, we all believe it's really important. So I'm just going to share how the whole, thought around building this shared language really started for us. In 2014, when we started working in the employability space, everyone in India at least was talking more about skilling. Skilling providers looked at skilling was on everyone's mind. So we weren't, talking about anything that was very different. The skilling providers looked at the number of students that they trained. The government was pushing for the number of people certified as skilled. Industry was looking to fill the skills gap, right? And students really did not know actually what to expect in all of this. For a minute, let's try and understand the student's point of view in this. Okay, I'm going to talk about one of our students, Mayuri. At that time, she was in class 12, the first in the family to go to college. In her school, there was a beauty course, there was a mobile repair course. She wanted to go to college and work in a bank. That was her thinking. Her teachers sort of kept telling her that she needs a skill, otherwise she won't find a job. Her parents wanted her to have a respectable job and didn't have anything more to sort of add to that. Her uncle told her that, you know, the IT industry had a lot of scope and she should be looking at that. And in all of this, Mayuri really had no clue what to do. So when we started work in this space, we saw the problem as young adults not knowing where to go, what skills to choose, how to measure what they've learned, right? Because they were told that if they were skilled, they would get a job. It was, you know, that unilateral sort of metric that was there. While in education, right, if you ask teachers and if you ask college professors, getting a job or getting into a career is not what their purpose really was. That's not how they saw their purpose in being there. So if you look at this entire ecosystem itself, right, in education, teachers, students, parents, and the school system, they all know learning outcomes. They know that, you know, learning outcomes are measured as marks, uh, as grades. It's pretty clear. Students, parents all know that teachers are responsible for learning and that teachers need, an education degree. So in India, it's a B.Ed or a diploma in education. This common understanding actually was completely missing in the employability and the skilling ecosystem. In fact, there was really no process or any sort of metrics itself, right? That was when we realized that to begin to even start defining this ecosystem, we needed to build a common understanding and and through that common understanding, almost set common expectations, right? We also realized that a common language was the first to build that shared understanding, and that in turn then built that ecosystem. So what is this shared understanding that we went about and creating, right? Just like you know that we need to complete a class 12 to be a high school graduate, right? We helped adolescents see that to be employable, you first need to begin with a career aspiration, right? You need to know where you're going. That was pretty much the first. So we introduced the concept of careers and career aspirations. How will you complete class 12? You know, in education, you do that by passing all the subjects. So how will you choose what to become? By understanding yourself, your strengths, your realities, becoming self-aware, becoming aware of career options, and then going about adding all of the skills, right? How will you know you have all the skills as well, right? That was then the sort of the next question for students to answer, especially if you don't choose to work immediately. Then how do you know you have all the skills? Because you're not really looking for the job. Like how in school we pass exams. What we did with the help of Adhyan, we actually designed a career readiness diagnostic. So now any young adult or any college or even an employer has a can refer to this career readiness score. So it was understood widely that you are not, you don't have to necessarily get a job immediately to be certified employable, right? But we almost said that, okay, let's look at what makes you employable and include everybody in that ecosystem to buy into this. So all of this is now delivered by a career readiness facilitator. So like schools have teachers, careers are taught by career facilitators. This shared understanding came about with this, once we had this shared vocabulary with schools, where we spoke about career exploration and career planning with principals, with parents, with facilitators. So that was done. We realized this wasn't enough. Ultimately, industry has to hire young adults. So what we did is that we worked with in the initial years itself, about 150 to 200 employers. And we advocated to hire for attitude and skills and not just those qualifications, right? So how do you get an industry leader? What we did was to get industry leaders to actually buy into the concept of career readiness and acknowledge aspirations and career readiness much more than just a qualification. We advocated strongly for internships and we helped employers build career pathways for young adults. Finally, what's what is not part of the mainstream, we all know, never gets really adopted. So we work with state governments to include career exploration and career planning, employability as part of the school and college curriculum. We also spoke about, what Adhyan has been doing, the whole concept of the shared diagnostic and a tool that is participative with colleges as well. It's yet to be adopted as widely, but the seeds over there has also been sown. It's only then, right, when you sort of bring all of these stakeholders together, that students, educationists, and parents understand that this shared language is very, very essential. Now the expectations of everyone in this space is around careers, is sort of looking forward to employability and careers. So we realized that that was pretty much the first step that we needed to do to almost build out this ecosystem when we started off.
Thank you, Priya, so much for sharing how you've attempted to create that common language in a space that doesn't have much of a vocabulary in India, which is employability in schools and colleges. So we're going to pause here for about 7 to 10 minutes, where we'd like to have the audience ask some questions. So you could unmute and ask. I know there is some questions in the chat. I think Priya, there's one request to maybe discuss the employment career readiness diagnostic with somebody called Divya. And we have a question from Michelle as well as Kavita. Michelle, do you want to ask your question? You can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Anishri. My question is that, when it comes to shared vocabulary, like it always confuses me for a country like India with the kind of diversity that it has, especially a school or a classroom space which has students from mixed backgrounds and mixed communities. So what one student or one parent might think are the skills that that child needs to face life after school will be different from what another child has based on the privileges that you have and the circumstances that you have that you are born into and all of that. So how do you then have a shared vocabulary when it's so diverse in a country?
Priya, I think I'd ask you to take that question because you worked across communities that are extremely vulnerable, getting children to have career aspirations equivalent to anybody in the private school, college space. So how do you approach that?
Thanks, Michelle, for that question. And honestly, it's one of those really sort of difficult questions to answer, right? Our perspective and the way we looked at this quite honestly was to just sort of dignify the agency of young children, of young, of adolescents, right? So when the starting point really becomes what the adolescent wants, right? And if our whole effort was to clarify and help the adolescent clarify what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go by giving them the tools required to, come up with that clarity, we realize that that becomes the outcome that all of us almost as educationists or as practitioners in this space started working towards. So that's like the short answer to how do you unify this large diverse space of what expectations from education, really use what young people and adolescents are talking about, what outcomes they would like and what are their expectations out of education.
Thanks, Priya. Thanks, Michelle. Do we have any other questions for Vishubha and Priya at the moment? And we can keep our questions going in the chat, and Vishubha, Priya, and others can respond. I think Namita has a question. How early should this awareness of careers be starting? Priya?
Yeah, so I come from Latika Roy Foundation, who works with children with disabilities. And we have a center which is 14 onwards, and the other centers are below 14 years. So, we've had the experience of by the time the child is 14 plus, a lot of skills or a lot of abilities that he could actually have practiced over the last few years, it's a little too late. Even a simple vocational training like cycling, because we are finding children when they go into, let's say, the young adults going into employability, they're not able to sustain it. So my question is, how early can this awareness, self-awareness should be starting?
That's a great question again, Namita, and that's something that we totally should, as a community, almost come together and talk about. Right, the way we've in our experience, what we've seen is that at least from in the Indian context, right, the whole concept of what next is a little too early when it's middle school, and it's like you rightly said, it's too late by the time they finish high school, right? So what we realized was that the right time really to start getting adolescents to start thinking about what next, first understanding that, even sort of seeding the idea that what you want to do in life really depends on who you are. And I just read in the chat as well what Rudra has pointed out. Quite honestly, it is an evolutionary process, right? But if we are able to seed the thought, like you said, Namita, that it really begins with self-awareness, it really begins with understanding what your interests are, right? And then having some sort of a template for you to explore what is out there, then you can keep doing that match as you keep growing, because interests evolve with more and more exposure, right? Our aptitudes also, nothing is fixed, right? Even our aptitude keeps growing, and we keep learning newer and newer ways to do things, newer skills as well. So if that template is given to children and adolescents by the time they're in the 8th and 9th grade, we realize that then it becomes something, it almost becomes the way they think later on.
Okay.
So 8th and 9th is when we've started, we in our experiences worked really well.
Oh, sure.
I would like to add on from where Priya left. Being a career counselor myself, I have also experienced these sort of questions from different parents and stakeholders. And I do feel that by the time our kids or our students are 8th standard, I think they develop a maturity to understand life as such, right? And we have to basically orient them about how future future is like, what kind of different thoughts or trends which are there into the market. It's not about always conventional career, but we can also talk with them. We can start talking with them about alternative careers, right? So that they get a wider perspective, that they need not stereotype career based on gender or based on their background, but they can anyway start thinking from the age of 12, 13 plus, 13 plus. That's the best age group where we can start discussing about skill sets they need to acquire, or about their dreams, and the self-awareness part. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vishubha and Priya. Divya, I know you have a question, but I'm requesting you to place it in the chat in the interest of time. So if you could drop it there, direct it to Priya, Vishubha, and let them respond to you. And we're encouraging everybody else to share their own responses to these questions as well. So we will be introducing our next speaker, who is Mr. Sri Krishna Nayak. Is he in the room, Sneha, yet?
Yes, he is.
So Sneha, please go ahead, introduce Mr. Nayak and the strategy that he will be sharing.
Sure. Thanks, Anushree. So our third speaker for today is Mr. Sri Krishna Nayak. He's the headmaster of Government High School Kudchire, which is in Bicholi Taluka of Goa. He's worked in the public education system for 25 years now, and he has been awarded the Best Teacher Award by the Government of Goa in 2017. He also holds the position of a hub leader of 2 clusters of schools. And as a hub leader over the last 2 years, he's provided continuous support and mentoring to all the teachers of the schools for quality improvement in education at primary level. I think it's been a pleasure to watch him lead in a very dynamic way and with a patient composure. Today, he's going to be sharing with us the strategy, which is to continuously practice the language of school quality. And he will talk us through how he did that through regular meetings, school visits, interactions. He will share with us stories of from the field, from the schools. Before we hand it over to Mr. Nayak, there is a quick poll for you. Yasmin, could you please put on the poll? So the poll says, how often do you enable the stakeholders you work with to practice the new language or concepts you introduce through your interventions? A few more seconds. So I think we have a tie between regularly and sometimes. It's somewhere close by. So most of us here do enable stakeholders to practice the language and concepts that we have been introducing. Thank you, everyone. Handing it to Sri Krishna Nayak sir now. Sir, if you can unmute and if you can put on your video.
And just a reminder that we have 5 minutes left for our sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. As a part of the government of Goa, we have something set called as a hub leader. And at present, I am the hub leader of the Harwane cluster, where we have more than 11 schools participating. And initially, I have visited all the schools in the month of June, and I have seen what is happening in the school. I talk to the teachers, I observe their lessons. I also see what are the strategies they are taking in imparting the lessons, how the students are involved in the lesson. And then I had decided to do something for these schools. We have the 11 schools. I have taken the help of the Shala Siddhi platform, where most of the objectives are there. You know that in the Shala Siddhi Government of India project, we have almost the 7 domains are there. Out of these 7 domains, I have selected the best one, that is the teacher learning and assessment. And under this teacher learning and assessment, we have many sub-concepts such as we have the teacher understanding of the learner, then subject pedagogy, planning for teaching, enabling environment. And I have decided the one topic, that is the planning for teaching. I have seen that most of the schools are not using the lesson plan. The teachers are mostly use the textbook while teaching. Teacher teach the lesson as per the textbook with the focus of completion of the syllabus and not making a creative activity. And I had decided to take this planning for teaching as a common platform for my all the 11 schools. I have visited all these 11 schools. Then I have take a meeting on that support visit I have made along with my other teachers, and I come to the conclusion that a lot of training is required. So I have taken the 2-3 workshops for them, how to prepare a very simple lesson plan. And basically, you know, this is for the standard 1 to 4, where we have schools in Goa, we are having only one teacher or only 2 teachers taking the 2 division, first standard and the second standard. And it is a new concept for them to how to prepare the lesson plan. But due to our constant efforts and frequent visits to all the schools, support visit, then video sharing and their combined meetings, and it will help me a lot in introducing this Shala Siddhi evaluation project at my hub leader. I have also taken another important area, that is how teachers are making the classroom management, then teaching learning process, how the teachers are utilizing the available TLMs. If the TLMs are not available, whether it is developed by the teacher or the student, And most important part is, we have also seen that there is a listing of all these TLM activities or models in the school that is more important. And beyond the textbooks, we can say that some other teachers I have seen that they are taking the student outside the classroom. They are taking a very small part in the open area where they can impart the teaching. So this is the project I have completed, and this project is going on for the last 1.5 years. I have taken the support of the model of the Shala City evaluation. And after the completion of almost 1.5 years, we have seen that all the teachers are united. We have the WhatsApp group. We have the common sharing of the platform. If some having the LCD projector, they will share with the other schools. And during this pandemic situation, our teachers are united. I have taken the 2 workshops for them. I have taken regarding the new introduction of the new education policy, how we can share the values of the common practices like preparation of the worksheet or the preparation of the lesson plan with the other teachers. And all other teachers with all 11 schools are united even during this pandemic situation. And I hope that this is a very nice activity undertaken by the government of Goa and under the banner of Shala Siddhi evaluation. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And I think Mr. Nayak's hub is one of those hubs where he's really been able to get them to use the same set of standards and shift their understanding by constantly getting them to look at it, like he was sharing, that they're moving away from a space of, very mundane classrooms to very active classrooms, because their understanding of those standards that he mentioned kept growing as he kept visiting them, talking to them about it. So thank you so much, sir, for sharing your learning from the field and what you've been able to do with constantly practicing that language with all your hub schools. Before we go into Q&A for Mr. Nayak, we have our last speaker that we wanted to introduce today in the last strategy. We have Dr. Devansh Yadav with us, who is currently the Deputy Commissioner of Changlang District in Arunachal Pradesh. He is an IAS officer. He, in his current capacity, manages COVID-19 management, law and order, education, and health, among other aspects of the district's functioning. He also holds an MBBS from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences and is a recipient of multiple awards, including the Digital India Award 2020. We've had the pleasure of watching him work in Changlang district in Arunachal Pradesh. And the strategy that he's going to shed light on is this idea of how, as a government official, he's been thinking about that you need to incentivize the use of a shared language. If you want people to develop a common understanding of quality, and a common language, how it does require some kind of systemic incentive. So I'm going to hand it over to Devansh to share with us his story for 5 minutes, and then we will open up for Q&A. In the meantime, please do continue to put your questions and thoughts here. Before that, sorry, we have a poll, I think. So before we have Devansh share, we have a quick poll for all of you. Do you believe incentives are important for the adoption of a common vision or vocabulary? Okay, so we have 68% saying yes and 32% saying no. We'd love to hear those who are saying yes and no, why you believe that, and what is it that you see as a differing point of view. Please share your thoughts in the chat. Devansh, handing over to you now.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope I am audible.
Yes, we can see you, hear you, yes.
Yeah. First, I would just like to tell that where we are located in Arunachal Pradesh, as you know already, that it is one of the northeastern states of India. And whenever it comes to mind, we think of tourism and sparsely populated areas. And my district is no different, but compared to other geographies, it is one of the highest populated areas of the state. We have a population of around 1.5 lakhs. And we are the second easternmost district of the state. And in my district, because of this comparatively higher population, we have 253 primary and middle schools, 24 secondary schools, and around 11 higher secondary schools. So why does that become important? Because as we all know that when this new education policy came, then this idea of a school complex came, and with that we started working at ground level in our district, discussing with teachers and principals that is the school complex at all existent in the schools. And one thing we found, that although Shala Siddhi has been tried like in other parts of the country, it has been tried in Arunachal Pradesh, but after 2018, its implementation has not been done. And also the school complex is non-existing, which means that the higher secondary or the secondary school, which is taking students from feeder schools, which are primary and middle, they are not in coordination or helping out or syncing with each other. So in the month of January, we contacted Adhyan Foundation, and we decided that how to arrange funds was always a problem. And after that, what we thought is that let us see that if any existing scheme can help us with that. So there was a Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan which is ongoing, and in that district receives around 8 to 10 lakh rupees on an annual basis for training of school management committees. So I went to some of these trainings, and what I saw is that it is basically just a government official who is from education department. They are going to the school complexes and they are providing training with very little interaction and very little follow-up. And also there is not very active participation of the parents in such meetings, because these meetings last for 1 or 2 days at max. So what we did is that when we started working with Adhyan, we thought that since we are going to take fund from the school management committee training component of the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan scheme at Changlang district level, so from this component, let us focus on school management committees. Because if you look at Arunachal and Changlang in particular, apart from the remoteness, there are many tribes which are residing over here, but we also have a significant tea estate population which are Adivasis. We also have a lot of refugee population like Chakmas, and we have a lot of migrants from Bihar and other parts of the country. So dropout rate is very high, infrastructure is not that good, and we have low pass percentages. So in that scenario, when the state has a limited capacity, what can be done from the side of community by mobilization of school management committees was our plan. And for that, we took a subdivision in the district, which is Burdumsa subdivision. And in that subdivision, the important thing is that it is one of the poorer parts of the district. So we tried to target it first. And after that, after we selected the subdivision, we took a higher secondary school, which is the only higher secondary school in that area up till class 12. We had a discussion with the principal. We selected 12 schools, which are feeder schools to the higher secondary school. Those 12 schools, we marked them. Volunteers came from Adhyan. They resided for next 6 months in the district and worked in the subdivision itself. The first thing which they did was they had an elaborate survey done according to the Shala Siddhi platform. We had domain 1 and 7, which is domain 1 is infrastructure and domain 7 is school management and parents participation. So these two domains were taken, and according to the Shala Siddhi format, the assessment of schools was done. Once the assessment was done, the same was shared with the parents, with the school management committee members, and we also participated in some of them. After participation, school management committee meetings were called and their follow-up meetings were called to find out that what can be done in terms of the gaps which have been found in these surveys. Now, when we look at the gaps, there are a lot of gaps. There, like immediately, a lot can be not fixed immediately, but still, if we mobilize community, there are two benefits. First, by community mobilization, we are giving immediate benefit to the school, and we are not waiting for any government incentive to come. That is the first thing. And after the community completes their work and they are given an incentive in terms of composite grant, then the community will be encouraged to undertake more activities in future. Apart from that, when the community is undertaking some repair work, any intervention in the school, then they became partners and stakeholders in the school. By that, their sense of ownership develops. So in the month of February, all this was done. The survey was done. Action plan was prepared in the month of March. And by April, we started seeing results. So I would like to tell the gathering that after April, when we had an assessment of all the schools, we found out that 90% of the schools, parents who are members of school management committees, they had pooled in their own resources and they had started the school repair work, addressing various requirements of the school. Now that was something unheard of in this area, because there have been massive government schemes which are basically subsidizing people, and the sense of ownership has not developed. School management committees are practically defunct. When parents get so much motivated that they give their own money, their own resources to repair the schools, it develops a sense of ownership and a pride in one's own school. And that happened in those 12 schools. After that, we have been following continuously with them. And to incentivize them, as I said, we released composite grants which are given to us by Education Department. This was completed in the month of April. And then the COVID second wave has come and everything has now practically stopped. But in the past 3 months, what we realized is that any government scheme can be utilized in a much better manner, provided we re-engineer it in a manner that it suits the local requirements. So as I said, the SMC, which was the SMC training fund, which was 10 lakh rupees, which we were receiving, a small part of it, we gave it to us. Then we started this experiment. So that gave us very good results. It is an example to do similar re-engineering in other schemes. Second is Shala Siddhi model has been tried in this context, and SMCs have been activated. They have done the school repair work and they have become partners in education and reforms of our education system. The third thing is that based on that, now we are planning to incentivize them, and schools which perform better, who monitor better, and who become better stakeholders, we will incentivize them further. And the last point is that we will be taking these key learnings and try to take it up with the state government for using this same model and implementing it in other parts of the state. So this is from my side. I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Devansh. Thank you so much. I know we have only about 5 minutes more, but we'd love to sort of have questions. If anybody has a question for Devansh or Mr. Nayak, please unmute your mic and you can speak. And it's been really interesting to watch how Changlang district has sort of leveraged community and incentives together. Divya, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much to all the panelists and for this great initiative. So I just have this question and anybody can maybe take it. So I just read research by Pratham that almost 126 million students of India have a learning loss owing to pandemic. So what do you think can be taken as an immediate step as being educators or teachers or being in the education space as such, in order to sort of working in the microcosmic levels to understand and creating that shared vocabulary in our own school or classroom?
We're inviting anybody who wants to respond to that, who can share their own experiences, or any of the speakers who'd like to maybe take that question.
Anushri, if I would, may.
Yeah.
So in our district in Changlang, last year similar situation happened, and although right now exams have been completed, although not completely, but we finished our schools by end of April. So when pandemic came, the first wave came, what we did is that we had lots of local youths who were wanting to basically contribute in some manner and help the government. So through them, we basically had a social media campaign in which we asked volunteers who are basically doctors, not doctors, I would say, but anyone who is basically sitting in these metro cities and is in lockdown. They are not going for jobs, they are sitting in their houses, and they are having a lot of ample time, and they are wanting to contribute. So through that, we were able to mobilize around 100 volunteers from across the country, mostly from metro cities, Hyderabad and Delhi to be in particular. And through these volunteers, we were able to conduct online classes. Now, of course, in terms of the reach, many areas were not reachable and many students did get deprived. For that, the same youth volunteers, we started that these people would be going on field and they would be trying to have some kind of local village mohalla classes in small gatherings of 5 to 10 students, because these are the areas where there are no internet. So these two things we tried in lockdown one. As of now, because the academic session is over, so we are not thinking of anything, but definitely if the situation extends in the month of June, then we'll have to plan something. Thank you.
Thank you for that response, Devansh. I think there's a question for Mr. Nayak from Michelle, which is, Mr. Nayak, how did you incentivize all the schools in your hub to want to work towards improvement? What made them motivated to want to work towards improving their schools?
Yeah, working with these schools is very important. What incentive I get is regarding to have the better quality education to all the childrens, and to provide. Now, doctor has mentioned that they have taken the resources and the community participation. But as a academic side, I have taken the teaching, learning, and assessment, and also I have taken the learners' progress, attainment, and development. It definitely help the little children to understand the concept of education at the early age. And I have traveled all my 11 of schools, because I want to do something renovation or changes in the education right at the grassroots level. One of my school is almost 11 kilometers from my main school, but I still travel most of the visits I have made, and I have given them all my supports from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Naik. I know
Thank
we're
you.
almost out of time. So I'm requesting everybody to take a look at the chat where we dropped a Mentimeter link, which is a question that we want all of you to share your responses to. Is that in what way do you want to enable your stakeholders to build a shared language and understanding of quality? To Sachi's point in the chat, which is that, in this pandemic, we felt like one step forward, two steps back. Because how do we sort of continue all of this through the current situation, which has just felt so overwhelming? So as you sort of think about that question, think about the current situation and say, in what way do you want to go back to your stakeholders and start saying, how do we now rethink of what that common language and vision is for us? So requesting everybody to please get onto the Menti link and start sharing your responses. And we also have, I think, Shriya, you have responded. How do we ensure that all children have access to education? So requesting everybody to get onto this Menti link and start sharing what you want to do with your stakeholders. I'm going to share my screen so that we can see the responses that are popping up. We have some fantastic thoughts here that, get your stakeholders to understand the why before we start moving down some path. And I think especially right now when everything is so uncertain, just regrouping and starting to say, why do our schools even exist? What purpose do they serve? Have a well-publicized shared vision and measurable goal. And given that we have a new policy that came out this year in India, how do we start getting everybody to understand it? And this idea of regular communications, orientations, survey meetings, all really good points. Shift from my vision to our vision. Also really like this idea of how do we get everybody to model the language actively, which is what Mr. Nayak has done very well in his cluster of schools. Experiential workshops, creating space for dialogue. Again, I think this idea of creating spaces for dialogue to talk about the aims and purpose is something I've seen Priya do really well when she's tried to build this common language around employability. This is great. So keep the responses coming. And I know we're over time, so I would just like to sort of close our session by thanking all our speakers for coming today, for sharing their different perspectives. Thank you, Bishubha, for telling us what it is to be an engaged parent in a school and really understand what the vision means. Thank you, Priya, for talking about creating that awareness in the ecosystem around employability and what those metrics could look like. Thank you, Mr. Nayak, for talking about this idea of practicing your language continuously with all your stakeholders and really like supporting them where they need it. And Devansh, thank you for that continued conversation on thinking of what can incentives really look like when we want people to adopt a shared vision or a language. Thank you all, and thank you Catalyst 2030 for organizing the space to enable this kind of dialogue and for everybody who participated so actively today. We appreciate everybody in India who showed up during lunchtime and was here throughout. So thank you so much, and everybody who tuned in from other countries at a really unearthly hour for you. Really appreciate it, and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.